So the next segment on the agenda today is the technology transfer from federal laboratories, and Mark Snyderman from the Snyderman Law Group will take that away.
Thanks, Chris. Much appreciated. So we're going to take a turn here from the kind of discussions we've been having, which were been really related to the actual practice of being a government contractor, and try to give you some practical advice here and some knowledge that may seem a little afield, but I think it'll wrap into the total picture of being a government contractor and becoming a government contractor, and give you some things to think about that you may not have known before. And technology transfer is sort of a term that some people you may hear thrown around, or you may not have heard it at all. But we all know that billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars go into funding R&D all the time. You may have heard of some of the major labs and not have any idea what they do with it. What they do, you might have heard of like Sandia National Lab or Los Alamos, Argonne National Lab. But there's federal laboratories in every single agency across the country. They have some of the greatest scientists in the world. They have some of the greatest technology in the world. And one of the things that makes the United States different from a lot of countries is, while we fund that research, we have done nothing. We aren't mandated, or we're not allowed to have the government then fund that research to become actual product. So think about China. So China does a lot of research and development that's funded from the government, and then the government actually builds the plants or the manufacturing facilities to put that technology into the economy. Much different here. So in order to be competitive, Congress passed a couple acts starting in the 80s, Stevenson-Wilder and the Federal Technology Transfer Act in 86, which mandated that federal labs try to accelerate the work that they're doing through collaborating actually with academia, with private business, state and local government, to try to create and push this technology back to the market and actually commercialize it. So a lot of things that we think about in the market that exist are actually federal technologies. And I'm trying to give you some real high level examples to see what am I even talking about here. Well, think about almost it's actually crazy how much of the technology that we use on a daily basis actually came from the federal government. And I'm going to give you a good range of product, right? So the mobile camera, the cameras, the digital cameras that are in your phone right now. So if you look at your phone, flip it over, you have a camera in there. That camera actually was developed from NASA sensor technology originally. So your cell phone itself, almost every piece of the technology that's in here came from the federal government. Low-fat cheese, right? So the USDA has a whole set of labs that's developing, new foods, new technology for packaging, for protecting foods. So low-fat cheese came from the USDA. Surimi, which is basically fake crab, was invented by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Roma tomatoes. Memory foam is a really famous technology transfer success story. So when they were launching the shuttle into space, originally they were having huge issues with all the vibration and the G-force, and they needed to come up with a better seat for the astronauts. And they came up with this stuff called memory foam. So originally, what was used for the space shuttle became a common use in. Not only is it used now for foam for mattress, for pillows, you see it in shoes. I think Cole Haan or somebody uses it in the bottom of their shoes. You use it in car seats. It's all over the place. Permanent pressed cotton. So I think you're getting the point here that a lot of technology that we use, and here's the far range of it, right? So it goes all the way out to insect repellents and mold removal products. And some of these are created in labs that you wouldn't ever think would have created something like that. Mold removal product created by Sandia, which is a DOE lab. It's a Department of Energy lab. But it turns into what we use on a common day basis. And it goes as far as the ARPANET, which was the original internet, which was created by DOD. GPS was originally created created by DoD. And Siri. Siri was actually a product that the DoD used for battlefield automation. And it became, one of the most widely used products and the reason why iPhone has been so huge over the years. So what I want to tell you now is, well, what does this all mean to you? Okay, so great. So the federal government does all this, but how do I do anything with them? It's the federal government. It's really hard to work with them, isn't it? And if I use that, and if I try to work with their technology, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose all my tech? So what's available is not only technology, but facilities, testing, and expertise. So the easiest way to think about it is, okay, so the federal government came up with a piece of technology. I think this tech could be something huge in the commercial world. I want to license it. Right? So you can actually get a license from the federal government to technology that they have patents in. Most of us have no idea that that exists, right? So that's why we're talking about it today, because it could be a game changer for your business if you're doing any kind of R&D or even just looking to commercialize product. There's a way to collaborate with the government technology, and you can actually help them. They can actually help you develop it and not affect your technology rights in that tech. Cool. They have world-class facilities available, like 3D printing that nobody in the world has, furnaces for melting metals, for testing, textiles, pharma, you name it. There's a facility in the United States at a federal laboratory that exists. And the amazing thing is you could actually access this. They have agreements to let private companies come in, access lab facilities, use those facilities to help advance their businesses. The federal labs are here to help you. And that's something that we don't normally hear or think about when we think about our government, that they're actually here to help us and help us move technology forward. So, and expertise, I mean, there is no doubt that the expertise that sits in our federal labs and thousands of scientists are literally some of the best and brightest minds in the world, solving some of the most challenging scientific issues that exist. So try to break it down to you for a kind of a simplified look at what would you do and how does tech transfer work for you. The first thing you want to do is you got to identify your research and development needs. And then you can search for a laboratory resource and capabilities. And I'll give you some resources for how you go about searching that in a minute. You identify what they call a T2. T2 is a short for technology transfer mechanism to achieve your goal. And a mechanism really is an agreement. It's a type of agreement that the federal lab will have with a private company or academia on how they achieve the goals that they have for the project. They're going to assess the steps needed to commercialize that. And then you want to contact the lab. And there's actual people at the labs whose job is to talk to you and work with you to negotiate and commercialize technology. So there's actually a whole department in each of the labs. It's called the Technology Transfer Department. And I'll give you a resource for how you find who those people are and how you contact them. Then you're going to do what you normally do. You're going to negotiate a deal, and then you're going to go out and you're going to commercialize that tech. So when I said mechanisms, here's the types of mechanisms that really exist. So their standard would be a license agreement. And license agreements can be either exclusive or non-exclusive. Think about most of the pharma drugs that you see out there on the market. A lot of it has been created in the federal labs at NIH, at the National Institutes for Health. It's not. The R&D of the pharma companies has decreased significantly, and they rely heavily on the federal labs to do a lot of this research. Probably the most used agreement in working with the federal labs, and the one that would probably most be used by you as a company, is called a CRADA. And a CRADA is a cooperative research and development agreement. And what that is you can actually pay government scientists to help you with R&D. So normally you can't pay the government to do work for us. I mean, that's not how it works. They pay contractors. But here we can access some of these super scientists and facilities and pay them to do some work for us to help us advance the tech. to find a way to get over a major technology hurdle that we may be facing in R&D. There's user facility agreements. So I said before, you could actually rent facilities from some of these great facilities that exist around the country. You can actually use that and have an agreement with them to do that. Technical consulting agreement. You can actually just almost like you would hire an expert. You can hire these scientific experts to give you some advice. Material transfer agreements. You can transfer material to the federal government to do research on it. And one of the big programs that's out there is SBIR. We'll talk a little bit about that because it is really a great pathway for companies that are in the tech field across any domain of technology to work with the federal government and get involved in federal contracting. So SBIR, if you do R&D, you really need to be looking at SBIR. So it's called the Small Business Innovative Research Program. The purpose is pretty simple. Access small business entrepreneurial spirit for the government to meet its specific R&D needs. So the government understands and knows there are small businesses out there doing some amazing work in actually developing tech, creating new technology, and it wants to access these companies. But most of these companies, as we said, and I think Chris said it, don't really know how to work with the federal government. In many ways, it sounds like the worst thing you could do as a small business or even a medium-sized business, right? So small business for this purpose is less than 500 employees. That's sometimes that could be a pretty big sized business. It's not a revenue based number, it's a number of employees. So you could have a pretty significant sized business that's still considered a small business and go after SBIR programs. And SBIR is a multi-phase program. So phase one, you just have to do a feasibility study. And every year, actually multiple times a year, there are topics that come out across all the agencies because every agency from the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, the National Institutes of Health, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, EPA, USDA, every single agency. So whatever your business, there's going to be an agency that matches up with the type of work you do, comes out with topics that they're very interested in getting some help on from small business. Sometimes you can help shape these topics if you actually have marketed and talked to government scientists and government program people. But if not, you can look through these topics each year and find ones that are interesting, and maybe you have technology that can help out, or maybe you have expertise that you think can help out. In phase one, it's a very simple proposal, and you're just going to get a feasibility study, which is usually up to about $150,000 of a first contract. And the purpose of phase one is really, like I said, it's just a feasibility. Is this even a potential concept? And the government may award multiple phase ones to multiple different companies looking for the best possible solution. So you could win a phase one award, go through your feasibility study, and then the larger dollars come into play where you can get into a phase two contract, which is the government actually then pays you to say, okay, we loved your concept. We think this is doable. Go ahead and do it. Here's $750,000 to $1.5 million, depending on the agency, to go out and do this work and develop the technology. And then phase three, you move into commercialization. And the great thing about this is, although the government's funding this project, they don't get the rights in the technology. They don't want the rights. They just want this technology to get to market so that they can access it. So pretty cool program if you're in the R&D and tech world. Some resources for you. The best resource really for learning about tech transfer and finding technology is www.federallabs.org. And there's a section on that site called FLC Business. I know this stuff well because I used to be the program manager for the Federal Laboratory Consortium, and I actually helped design and develop this FLC Business search engine. So it's a product that is sort of near and dear to my heart, and tech transfer is really just such a great potential project that I don't think most companies know about. So it was one of the reasons why we wanted to put it into this program and sort of take a sidestep off of the more traditional risk management, legal aspects, and talk a little bit more about some things that can help you as a new federal contractor or a company that wants to go into federal contracting and find some avenues to look at. And the SBIR program is, it's just sbir.gov. And there you can find all the solicitations and the open topics. There's topics open right now. It's October, and I think they're due in November, that are open right now for review. So take a look and see if there's something there that might pique your interest. And we'd love to help you out if you need some help. And I'll pass it back to Chris to move on to the next aspect of the program.
Mark, thanks very much. That was a great discussion, and it highlights exactly what we're talking about, in that these topics around federal government business are more about opportunities rather than bureaucracy and red tape. Let somebody else help you get through the red tape. Think about all the opportunities that are sitting in front of you economically, as well as with regard to tech development. Really good stuff.